guys fight about who's the coolest or who's the evil person. I know I'm the heel of the show. It's hard. It's not fun, but I'm the one that's got the attitude, got the edgy grind. Anyway, sorry about that. I was showing you a little bit of my edgy grind.
Right.
But thank you for being a fan of the show.
Kody Wynn Brown was born on January 17, 1969, to parents William Wynn Brown and Janelle II. Kody was raised in the predominantly mainstream LDS town of Lovell, Wyoming, and the Browns were part of the mainstream LDS church. Contrary to what some fans believe, the Browns were not Mormon newcomers or outsiders, as Kody is the fourth great-nephew of Brigham Young, and thus connected by blood to many prominent members both of the mainstream church and the Polygamist groups. Remember Zola Brown, granddaughter of Brigham Young and Rulon Jeff's first wife? She and Kody are third cousins. Kody attended public schools where he excelled at amateur wrestling. Friends from high school remember Kody as lively, boisterous, and attention-seeking. One woman recalls that classmates thought Kody was, quote, flamboyantly gay, while another old friend says they were not surprised that Kody married 4 women because he always liked to be the center of attention. Wait, these people are his friends? Where did TLC dig them up from? I think it's a bit weird and disrespectful to speculate on his sexual orientation. Even if Kody really was deep in the closet, I don't see how heckling him to come out is going to make the world a safer place for him. Stop harassing people to come out of the closet. I know people usually have good intentions and they want to show tolerance, but trying to force sexual orientation epiphanies on someone is not the helpful move people seem to think it is. Okay, rant over. Kody, like most young men of the LDS Church, went on mission for 2 years after completing high school. It was during his mission trip that his parents joined the Apostolic United Brethren, or AUB, and were excommunicated from the LDS Church. At this point in his life, I actually feel sort of sorry for Kody. He was doing everything he was supposed to do to move up in the faith that he had been raised in, only for his father to undo it and turn the family into social pariahs in the LDS Church. Kody recalls that he returned from his mission trip to a chilly reception from old friends who now saw him as a weirdo who joined a cult. The social stigma did not stop Kody from pursuing women from polygamist families, however. In 1989, he met a girl named Mary Barber. Kody's stepsister and later second wife, Janelle, was married to Mary's brother, Adam Barber. Yeah. Anyway, Kody quickly proposed to Mary, and she accepted, though only on the condition that he agreed that they would live the polygamist lifestyle. Mary is a true believer that her entry to the celestial kingdom relies on living the principle of plural marriage. The pair were legally married on April 21st, 1990. Kody was 21, and Mary was just 19 years old. 1990 was also the year when Janelle divorced her first husband, Adam. Though they were step-siblings and one-time in-laws, Janelle and Kody hit it off, and he took Janelle as his second wife on the 20th of January, 1993. Less than a year later, on March 24th, 1994, Kody married his third wife, Christine Allred. As mentioned previously, Christine is the granddaughter of the late leader of the AUB, Rulon C. Allred. Many viewed this marriage as a sign that Kody was moving up the ranks of the AUB, since not just any man would be permitted to marry someone so close to one of the prophets. In reality, Christine went against the better judgment of her family to marry Kody. Some might say that Kody and Mary even groomed Christine, as they met during church events when she was just a teenager. In the family's book, Becoming Sister Wives, Christine recounts that there was another young girl who had been considered as a second wife by Kody and Mary, but that the girl, who was under 18, backed out at the last moment. Kody overlooked Christine a second time when he took Janelle as his second wife. Christine recalls always being good friends with Kody and that the pair shared an attraction. However, Kody seems to remember things differently. In his portion of the book, Becoming Sister Wives, Kody admits that he was not attracted to Christine, saying she was chubby and just not his type. If you watch Sister Wives, then you are probably familiar with the infamous nachos incident. For the uninitiated, during one of Kody and Christine's first dates, Kody was totally turned off by the sight of Christine wolfing down some cheesy nachos. This revelation did not make Kody popular with a lot of viewers who tend to have a sympathetic view towards Christine. I mean, is there a neat and polite way to eat cheesy, melty nachos? But was Kody really repulsed by Christine in those early years? Or is this a narrative he has spun recently because he feels rejected by her? Your guess is as good as mine. I have enough to say about the Kody-Christine marriage that I probably will make an entire video on that subject if anyone is interested. But before I move on, I'll just say that I believe there was a level of competition between Christine and Kody that didn't really exist with his other wives, and I don't think Kody likes competition. Christine proved to be a stabilizing influence on the family. Before she joined, Mary and Janelle were having trouble getting along. Janelle remembers Mary as being resentful and cruel at times. Some fans speculate that Mary's infertility issues may have contributed to her resentment. It's not that Mary softened when Christine joined, but the fact that Christine stayed home with all the children allowed Janelle to escape into a job that brought much needed money to the growing family. And grow it did. Kody quickly got down to the most important part of polygamy, the fathering of children. Mary only had one child, while Janelle and Christine both went on to have 6 children each. It seems they reached some level of normality and routine in these earlier years, but 2 major life events would change the family dynamics forever. After being introduced in 2009, Kody began to court a woman named Robyn Sullivan. He would marry her in 2010, the same year the Browns went public with their lifestyle on the TLC show Sister Wives. The first season followed the family through Christine's final pregnancy and Kody's courtship with Robyn. The pair were married in front of TLC cameras on May 22, 2010. Robyn, like Janelle, was divorced. Unlike Janelle, she had 3 children with her first husband, David Jessup, and the two had a contentious divorce. If the name Jessup sounds familiar, that's because the Jessups are a prominent family in the FLDS, with Willie Jessup now the leader of his own splinter group. David is actually related to everyone on the show. It's an interesting Google search if you want to know more. Though David came from a polygamist family, his marriage to Robyn was monogamous. I'm not going to get into all the gossipy details of their divorce out of respect for their 3 kids who were caught in the middle of it all. Robyn's introduction to the family was the perfect vehicle to introduce viewers to the Brown family and to polygamy in general. The Browns claim that they set out to shine a positive light on polygamy and prove that their families are filled with love and respect, just like any other. Instead, members of the AUB feel the Browns have damaged the image of polygamy. The show has followed the family from their original vision to live in one big home, a shining example of polygamous bliss, to something much darker. The Browns, falsely claiming that they had faced imminent arrest in Utah, packed up their belongings and dragged their family to Las Vegas. This move split up the family for the first time, and it was devastating for some of the older kids who had to leave their friends and schools behind. From that point, they have been almost continuously on the move. They did purchase a large plot of land, the infamous Coyote Pass, but as of this video's date in July 2020, little work has been done there. As the children grew up, their life events were sometimes used as plot lines for the show, which provided a nice light break in the heavy drama that continued to play out amongst the adults. Christine had a difficult time accepting Robyn from the very beginning. She was heavily pregnant during Kody's courtship and resented the time Kody spent away because he was not yet married to Robyn. It did not help matters that Christine learned that Kody had kissed Robyn on the day she gave birth to baby Truly. Generally, kissing before marriage is not permitted in their religion, and Kody had certainly not wanted to kiss Christine before or after their wedding. Kody and Robyn's catered and very public wedding, which was funded by TLC, of course, only added fuel to the fire. Janelle and Christine were a little sad because their weddings had been private and hidden affairs. Kody had been distant and removed from the planning process in his first 3 marriages, but was absolutely giddy with joy with Robyn, and everyone knew it. Kody defenders, and they do exist, might say that TLC producers went out of their way over the years to portray Kody as a heel, and I can't totally disagree.
You can't unsee what you're about to see. Look down the lens. It's like I am just at my wit's end. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. And I'm just trying to hold it together. Look down the lens. You look at him. That's all I've got to say about that. I hope everybody enjoys their Thanksgiving.
There are many times when Kody comes off looking like a jackwagon that probably could have been cut if the producer so chose. Don't get me wrong. This stuff is hilarious, and I am glad they kept it, but I wouldn't want to be him. There were cracks forming in the marriages from the very beginning of the show. Christine was the most vocal in criticizing Kody, but his marriage to Mary was also breaking down. Mary had agreed to legally divorce Kody so that he could marry Robyn and adopt her children. Fans couldn't help but notice that this legal divorce coincided with Kody distancing himself from Mary entirely, aside from that bizarre moment when Robyn offered to be a surrogate for Mary, but anyway. Likely due to loneliness and rejection, Mary went on to have the infamous catfishing scandal, and Kody cut her off from, quote, a full marriage, though they do remain spiritually married to this day. It was that very catfishing scandal which caused the AUBs to finally cut ties with the Browns. They are now officially on their own. Kody's marriage to Janelle isn't on the sturdiest of grounds either.
I think you understand the big picture that I have, and I want you to just respect that. Okay? Yeah, off.
In recent years, Kody seems to have embraced his role as one of the series' heels. While he seems to take the public ire in stride, Robyn is less comfortable with how the public perceives her. It makes her sad, and she cries. Actually, Robyn cries kind of a lot. Good old sobbin' Robyn. Robyn is thought to be the favorite wife, to the point that Wikipedia claims that Kody is now living a monogamous lifestyle with her. Despite the fact that Christine has left him, he no longer wants a real marriage with Mary and has a strained relationship with Janelle, the show soldiers on. Some believe this is because the family, which has grown to include 18 children, is constantly strapped for cash, though the show is not the only way the family make ends meet. The adults each have profiles on Cameo where you can pay them for short, personalized messages. There is also My Sister Wife's Closet, a business intended to be a clothing and jewelry boutique inspired by Polygamy, I guess? I don't really know, and neither did fans who felt the products were uninspired and overpriced. Fans also felt like Robyn forced the business idea on the family, even insulting Janelle in the process.
But I have been begging you to do the plus size clothing line because it's something that is your niche. You want these pieces. I know you do.
Mary, Janelle, and Christine famously shill MLM products and receive a fair amount of backlash for it. They are known to turn off comments on their posts promoting shady companies like Plexus and LuLaRoe. Some of their children in the family are also involved in MLMs. My opinion is that the Brown family has few scruples when it comes to making extra cash. But back to our tier list now. Where does Kody Brown fit in? He is certainly not as progressive or egalitarian as Brady Williams, but he is far from the kind of monster seen in Ervil LeBaron or even Tom Green. I decided to put Kody Brown right here. Kody is one of the Snark community's favorite villains, and it's easy to understand why. He can be arrogant, misogynistic, and indifferent to the point of cruelty. Yet he has not forced a single one of his children to live a polygamist lifestyle, nor married off any of his underage daughters. There are no reports of Kody physically or sexually abusing anyone. By Mormon polygamist standards, Kody has been a hands-on father with his young children, and he is at least publicly supportive of his children's lifestyles as they get older. Recently, Kody's oldest and only child with Mary came out as transgender and now goes by the name Leon. Some polygamist leaders might have disowned their child for this, or even worse, but Kody hasn't said anything against it, and that actually is a big step for someone in his religious circle. Don't get me wrong, Kody is far from perfect, but by coming out of the darkness and exposing his lifestyle to the world, the opportunity for the worst kinds of abuses is less present. I think the lesson we can take from Kody, which Brady Williams was also trying to get across, is that persecuting Mormon polygamist communities and shunning them from everyday life forces those communities to be secretive, and those secrets make it easier for predatory leaders to gain power and hide their crimes. We all love to hate Kody and his ramen noodle hair. He's a messy man with a messy life and somewhat dysfunctional family, but who has a perfect family? Love polygamy or hate it, the men, women, and children who live the lifestyle are just human beings who deserve to be included and protected by the herd, just like anyone else. I am not advocating for polygamy, but rather saying that my opinion of the lifestyle matters less than the quality of life for people born in it. Sadistic people like Warren Jeffs thrive on secrets and isolationism. Persecution makes the people trapped in controlling polygamous groups feel as though they have nowhere else to turn. Perhaps Rulon C. Allred was right all along. Being open with the public is essential to keeping church leaders in check. And that is why I put Kody right next to him on the list. I really hope you enjoyed this series. It wasn't as popular or topical as the Duggar series, but I enjoyed making it and exploring these men and their influence on American polygamy today. Fundamentalist Mormons are not the only religious group who hold polygamy as a core belief in the modern era, and I may explore some other groups who have polygamous practices of their own. As always, have a fantastic day or night, and I will catch you next time.